We explored and unpacked the topic of ascension in our previous chapter and put forth a theory that perhaps the goal and the purpose of spiritual development is not to achieve ascension, or is not to just perfect the self so that we can get out of here as quickly as possible, but that perhaps the true purpose and perhaps the purest motivation for seeking out spiritual development is to initiate the process of ascending descension. And ascending descension is the process of partaking of higher realms or higher vibrations of energy, allowing those higher vibrations of energy to touch in and to ground here so that the lower vehicles can be purified to such an extent and such a degree that the higher realms or the higher self is actually able to dock in and to land here. So rather than spiritual development and attainment being about leaving here and moving on to better places or higher realms, it's more about enacting or enabling a process of synthesis which allows those higher realms and those higher realities, those higher experiences of love and of light, which are so lacking here and so needed here, to come all the way in. So using these bodies, using the lower bodies as vehicles through which the higher self can express and live and be and give these lower realms, or just more lowered in vibration, slowed down in vibration realms, access to higher and purer energy, which ultimately is an act of service and enables the purification and the raising of vibration collectively here. So rather than spiritual development and attainment being about the self, it's more of a service-oriented process, which is about giving back. It's about bridging heaven and earth. It's about finding a way to embody heaven within the self. So this is found within the self here in this dimension, in this realm, and to then ooze that reality forth, bring that reality forth so that others can partake of it and awaken to their inner reality and the truth of who and what they are. So we've spoken about that, we've explored that. And in our next chapter today, which is titled Frequency Matching and Energetic Healing, we're going to explore the topic of how. So it's all well and good to commit to the process of the higher self grounding here and taking up residency here, but how do we initiate that from the ground? What does that look like? How is that process facilitated? What's involved in that process? And how do we do it? So let's read chapter 11, Frequency Matching and Energetic Hygiene, to find out a little bit more. If you seek truly and selflessly to enter into realms of higher truth and to receive the wisdom, love, and support of your higher bodies, then the most efficient way to do so is through a process which I will term frequency matching. If all is energy, and if it is the refinement or the ascension, the raising up of the frequency you are resonating at, which allows higher frequencies to descend and reside within you, then personal, spiritual, psychological, and physical development is surely the act of making the lower bodies, by which I mean the bodies resonating at a slower or lower vibration, ready to receive and act as safe host to these more highly vibrating bodies. This is not a process which can be done in or managed by the mind or the negative or separate ego. Once again, communication with and between the various higher bodies happens through feeling. Energy is felt. It cannot be grasped at or logically explained into, and it also cannot be broken into or applied through brute force. Spirit is discerning and seeks not to cause harm. I want you to spend a few moments conjuring up the resonance of pure, unconditional love. Take a few deep breaths into your heart center. allowing the mind to become still and quiet. As you breathe into your heart center, allow it to grow and expand, and internally whisper the words, unconditional love, into your heart center. Allow the heart to locate and to tune into the frequency of these words, and simply continue to breathe. You will feel a resonance begin to fill your heart. You can use your breath to breathe this unconditional love in, stoking its flames, and to breathe out and release anything which is not unconditional love. Let this frequency grow and build, and let it flow forth from your heart through your physical body, then through your emotional body, and then out through your mental body until you are overflowing with unconditional love, swimming in this frequency, resonating with unconditional love itself. Now, hold that frequency for as long as you can, not through an effort of pure will, but by using your will to maintain a receptive state so that this higher vibrational state of being can be communicated to you from the higher realities of your soul. You have just frequency matched. Through feeling, you set the intention to have a higher frequency reality be revealed to you, and in your receptive state, heart and mind turned towards God, you allowed that frequency to pour forth and be received within the heart center, the center point of your feeling-based communication. And as this frequency of love descended into you, you allowed your bodies to receive and match its frequency. The frequency of unconditional love was allowed, to whatever degree you are currently able, to raise the vibration of your form-focused bodies. Such an activity, such moments of receptivity and frequency matching, raises the overall vibration of the bodies. If you are able to allow yourself to be bathed consistently in such a frequency for an extended period of time, then the overall frequencies of the lower bodies would be raised and refined to such a degree that this higher frequency could be permanently held and eventually self-sourced, as in not dependent on an external higher source, because that higher source now resides and is fully activated in the heart center here. This is effective and productive frequency matching. This is how states of being are made known through feeling and are then permanently integrated. This is how the vibration of the bodies is raised so that new and higher vibrations of realities can continuously be made known. This is how transformation and integration or synthesis between the various levels of the being occur. This is how it becomes seamless. The lower bodies become safe host and an accurate representation of the soul and, ultimately, the God within. If there is a sacred quality which is ready to be anchored, activated, and actualized, it must be felt, surrendered to, and received as a feeling, as a frequency of energy. Once this frequency can be felt and received, it plants its seed in the heart center where, if nurtured and attended to and energetically fed, and if the resulting necessary healing and transformation takes place, it eventually takes root, blossoms, and raises the vibration of the entire self. The result is an increase in resonance and frequency, a reality which more closely matches the reality of God. It is important to note at this stage that exposure to higher vibrational states of reality will initiate a clearing out of lower vibrations that are stored in the form-focused bodies. Love always seeks to turn fear into love, to raise its vibration. The exposure to more love can be enlightening, blissful, insightful, and wonderful, but know that this love, these higher frequencies, will seek out the pain, the fear, the doubt, the separation, and the wounds within you, and will highlight them and bring them to the fore for healing. If love is to reside here, then fear must be transmuted, transcended, and relinquished. This is why exposure to these higher frequencies must be a systematic and stepped-out process. Forced exposure to high vibrations that the body is not prepared to receive can cause great harm as deeply buried pain and fear is forced to the surface to be confronted. This can act to more powerfully energize the negative ego as it attempts to defend itself against an onslaught of energy that it cannot understand. The negative ego is the part of the ego which exists as a separate self. The ego's function is to allow the indwelling soul to have the experience of existing as a separate entity. It is the part of you which is geared towards safely existing in the form world. It is the part of you which knows to not walk out in front of traffic, knows that you must eat and sleep and bathe and brush your teeth. Its goal is to keep you safe and to keep the body alive. The negative ego is an overactive ego which has taken its mission to keep you safe to the extreme and now responds to the world in fear. It clings desperately to its identity as a separate self and sees everything which has ever previously caused you harm or which could potentially cause you harm as a threat to that mission. The negative ego is suspicious of oneness and unity consciousness as it fears its own demise. It interprets this threat as something to defend and push against. It thinks of you as only an individual, and like a highly loyal pet dog, it snaps and bites and growls as it protects you from anything which threatens your identity or your individuality. It remembers everything and everyone which has ever caused you harm, and hyperactively looks for similar threats and keeps them at bay. The negative ego exists in a fear-based reality with self-obsession at the core, perceiving and reacting to imagined and genuine threats all around. It is highly reactive and unpredictable, overly responsive to its physical environment. It feels constantly insecure and unsafe and needs much healing and refinement so that it can finally relinquish its role, which is to keep you safe, to the indwelling soul. The ego is necessary as it is responsible for calmly navigating time and space, which makes little sense to the soul. But the negative ego is not necessary and is a symptom of a lack of soul presence. It steps in when the soul, your true protector and provider of safety, is not present. When you feel calm and whole and deeply connected with yourself, when you have a strong self-esteem and feel securely held by your higher self, working as a part of a team and aware of causal levels, then the negative ego becomes unnecessary. It is a man-made safety mechanism, and it can be relinquished as the soul takes its place here. This process of negative ego clearing and healing is absolutely essential. It can be a long and thorough process with negative ego defenses and, at the core of these defenses, often pain from which the negative ego is attempting to protect you, being revealed at every level of higher reality exposure. To suddenly expose the negative ego to the completely unified realities of the higher self will inevitably kick up its defenses and can act to solidify its conclusions that it must protect you at all costs. Those higher frequencies seek out and attempt to unlock the pains of the past, the dysfunction, the insecurity, the low self-esteem, the feelings of unsafety, the loneliness, the traumatic memories which the negative ego has squirreled away and locked down for your own safety and protection. This sensed threat can cause the negative ego to double its efforts as it believes that a very real predator is present and active. This can cause great schisms in an individual and can result in a type of spirituality where there is a blatant split between the higher and the lower. Such a split may manifest as prolonged engagement in meditation, spending all hours of the day bathing in and drinking of the energy of the higher self, with insufficient time spent engaged in the form world. These people may be very good at getting high and speaking of splendid and beautiful things, but as humans they are dysfunctional, disconnected, lacking in psychological clarity and deliberately deceptive, justifying and refusing to take responsibility for their dysfunction, often indulging delusions of grandeur and significance. This is not safe and it is not healthy. The soul is discerning. It sees and understands the plan. It knows your potential, just as it knows your pain and your dysfunction. It knows how to drip feed higher frequencies of energy to you in a way which does not cause harm, but instead produces long-term outcomes of love. The soul knows how to help you to heal, and the soul can handle your pain. It does not need to protect itself from your fear. It is important that you act according to the guidance of the soul, turning your heart and your mind to receive the soul's whispering guidance through feeling, never forcing anything, but also not resisting the next challenge. It is right that this is a stepped-out process. It is the only way to attain true synthesis and psychological clarity. Let your higher bodies guide you and be aware that the work must be done on the ground if you want to be a true practitioner of love and not a hypocrite who neither practices nor embodies what they preach. It is right that after a period of realization comes a period of reflection, refinement, and clearing. There cannot be a constant state of bliss. You cannot be in a constant state of awakening and realizing. You will not be able to keep up and you will quickly fall down. There is work which must be done on the ground so that the new knowing can be integrated and made real, so that the frequency matching can be thorough and complete. Following exposure to higher vibrations of energy, the energy which you have locked away into frozen blocks of fear will begin to melt. Specifically, any fear within you which is counterproductive to the actualization of love will need to be processed through and released. It is always best if this process is overseen by someone who understands what is happening, so that they can guide you and remind you of the love which motivates this healing. Pain and fear, or lower vibrations of energy, will inevitably be washed up. This is not a bad thing. This is not a sign that the love or the realization is slipping away from you. It is an indication that the love and the realization seek to reside permanently in you, and you are in the process of making yourself safe host. After periods of higher frequency matching, it is important that you stay very present with yourself. Remain in a receptive state, a listening state, and do not deny if painful or uncomfortable feelings begin to churn within. Accept that this is an essential part of the process and resist the urge of the negative ego to defend and protect you. When the negative ego tries to freak out, to push the feelings away, to justify or judge or defend, to reassert itself and your position as a threatened separate self, remain calm and steadfast and do not lose your steady footing. Breathe. Do not buy into the reality of the negative ego or of the feelings. Reassure the ego that you are here, that you are safe, that all is well. Remind yourself that the feelings are not happening now. They are old feelings which have been frozen and locked away. They melt and reveal themselves now so that they can be transmuted and transformed by you. Like a parent with a wounded child, you have a responsibility to stay and to oversee the process of healing. You are not the pain, you are not the fear, you are the indwelling soul, and you are a being of unconditional love. Your love is greater than the fear, greater than the pain. Stay identified with the love. The parent cannot serve the child if the parent screams and cries and panics whenever the child feels unsafe. The child needs calm, needs consistency, needs love and guidance. The child does not need judgment. The child needs tolerance and acceptance, as well as firm but loving guidance forward. You are the parent. When feelings and fears arise, acknowledge them, accept them, feel them, and use the breath to release them. Do not avoid or deny or judge them. That just refreezes them, which recreates them in your future. Breathe. Release all judgment and all fear of feeling. Acknowledge how you feel. Accept how you feel. Simply feel as you feel. Breathe out and release. Keep your heart focused on the new choice that you are making, on the new reality of love that you are moving into. Breathe in and feel yourself being flooded and filled with the frequency of this new choice. Breathe in love, breathe out and release the fear. Breathe in and fill yourself with love. Breathe out and release the old fear. You are safe. Some feelings, some fears are deeply entrenched and have been in a frozen state for a long time. Some feelings have a lot of defenses built up around them. Some fears you have been carrying around as a soul for a very long time, from life to life, too painful to look at or resolve. These feelings will take time to process through, but remember that the phenomenon of the feeling does not matter. The fear may not make sense. The fear may be from a time that you do not remember, or it may be in response to a situation that you, yourself, have never been in, a memory stored and carried at the level of the soul. Do not try to make sense of it. You will create a mess for yourself if you try to place every feeling and fear in the present time and relate it to current phenomena. The phenomena you experience now is just a mirror, just a reflection of this inner state of turmoil. Go within, identify as the parent. Do not turn away in fear or disgust. Simply allow the turmoil to move through you and to be released as you breathe in and make your new choice. Where there once was fear, I now choose love. Where there once was insecurity, I now choose calm assurance. Where there once was unsafety, I now choose to know that I am safe. Where there once was loneliness or isolation, I now choose unity and connection. Do not override how you feel, but do not get caught up in how you feel. Focus on what you are in the process of creating, knowing that you are indeed the creator of your reality, and you will indeed create for yourself whatever you focus on. If you focus on the pain, the suffering, and the fear, you use your creative powers to choose more pain, suffering, and fear. But if you focus on the love and the new knowing, despite how painful it feels right now, then you will inevitably create for yourself a future of more love filled with this new knowing. This is how the healing happens. This is how the higher realities ground and express here. Despite what spiritual teachers and organizations try to convince you of, higher realities cannot be simply plastered over the top of lower realities. They cannot be attained at a weekend workshop or realized just because you really want to realize them. No one can bestow higher realities or soul awakenings or light body activations upon you. You must demonstrate competency while realizing, integrating, actualizing, and earning in divine timing according to the plans and requirements of the higher parts of you which dwell in these higher realities. You must ready yourself if you desire to be considered ready, humble yet inquiring. Higher realities as well should not be held apart from lower realities as a place which you escape to when you no longer wish to be here. Ascending descension is the movement into. It is the on-the-ground transformation so that the higher and the lower meet, meld, and become one. The lower becomes an accurate, on-the-ground representation of the higher realities from which you spring forth. Do not be afraid of the transformation. This is a process of becoming. There will be periods of realization and there will be times of integration. Both are as important as each other, and neither can happen in isolation. Do not force this process, but also do not resist. Be guided by the soul and the indwelling entity. Spend time each day existing in and receiving the guidance and the frequencies of the soul, and stay present as the inevitable transformations occur. You cannot be exposed to higher frequencies of energy without being changed, unless you are the sort of person who grabs hold of these higher frequencies, gobbles them up to feel good for a moment, then drags them down in frequency to match your own fear, completely unaltered by the experience. A small tip: don't be that kind of person. To squander the gifts bestowed by the soul is, for all intents and purposes, to shit in one's own bed. You do not want to lose favor of a soul who is looking to ground and bring forth its reality. So that's all for that chapter today. And then our next chapter will continue on with the topic of frequency matching, but we'll be looking at frequency matching and energetic hygiene. So we've just spoken about energetic healing as a result of energetic matching, of frequency matching. And now, next, we're going to talk of energetic purification, containment and refinement of the self in the horizontal environment. But for now, that's all. Happy healing.